Hey guys, welcome back. It's Megan, and I'm so excited to see you today. Today we're going to start our third lesson for the week of October. Can you guys believe we're almost done with October already? Today we're going to learn a lesson about how true heroes stand up for God. And we're going to talk about the prophet Elijah and how he challenges the prophets of Baal. But first, how many of you guys know that we are all tested sometimes or challenged about our belief in God? Try and think about a strong wind and how sometimes when it blows, you have a really hard time standing up against it, right? We're going to do a fun activity today that's related to standing strong against the winds, but really also related to standing strong against temptation, challenges, or facing what's right versus what's wrong. All you guys are going to need is a water bottle that's empty and preferably dry, and a small piece of paper wadded up. And that's it. I'll give you guys a second to go grab that. Welcome back. Do you guys have your water bottle? Do you have your little piece of paper? In this situation, you guys are the piece of paper. It's little and it's wadded up, okay? Every day, you get the chance to decide to stand strong to peer pressure, to temptation, to choosing what's right over what's wrong. And it can be hard. But with God, you can do it. All right, so here you are, a little wad of paper. Lay your water bottle down on its side and place your little piece of paper just barely inside the water bottle. And then you're gonna try and blow your little piece of paper into the water bottle. Easy, right? Go ahead and use your blowing to try to be like a mighty wind. Blow as hard as you can. Go ahead, try it. It was pretty hard, wasn't it? I know that I had a hard time getting my piece of paper to go in the water bottle when I tried it. It was able to withstand the mighty winds. And this is a little visual on what it's like when we ask God to help us stand up for Him, to the winds of peer pressure, to the winds of temptation, or to the winds of challenges trying to blow us over and to make us change. How are we like that piece of paper when God keeps us standing strong? I want you guys to think about that question while we learn about our Bible story for this week, about a true hero who stood up for God. He was like that little mighty piece of paper too. Our story today comes to us from 1 Kings 18, verses 16 through 39. Now, during the time that Elijah was staying in Zarephath, Ahab, who was the king of Israel, was trying to find Elijah. Jezebel, who was Ahab's wife, had been killing prophets of God, and we can only assume that Ahab and Jezebel wanted to do the same to Elijah. And God instructed Elijah to go ahead and present himself to Ahab, and he did. It's also important to know that during this time, there was a great drought that was happening in Israel. They weren't getting enough water, and their crops weren't growing. And we learned that Ahab seems to have been placing the blame for this drought on Elijah. He accused Elijah of being the troublemaker of Israel, and that was a crime that was punishable by death. But instead of executing Elijah, Ahab listened and did what Elijah said because he had hopes that the prophet could bring the end to the great drought that was happening. Now look at your little piece of paper again. And remember that we said Elijah was like that little piece of paper too. He was small, but with God, he could stand tall. Let's see what Elijah did next. Elijah intended to publicly prove that the God of Israel was the one true God. And to do that, he challenged the prophets of Baal because most of the people had been worshiping Baal at this point. And so he challenged the prophets of Baal. They were both going to make altars, and they were both going to have sacrifices on their altars, the prophets of Baal and Elisha. And they were going to see whose God would light the altar and the sacrifice on fire. And Elijah, he wanted to make sure without any doubt that they could prove that this contest was fair. So he asked all of the prophets of Baal and Asherah to be present to plead with their God. And before Elijah's demonstration of God's ultimate power, the people had been refusing to commit fully to either God or Baal. And now after a long time had passed, with the prophets of Baal pleading with Baal to set this altar on fire, and he hadn't yet, Elisha began to mock them, to taunt them. Is your God sleeping? Is he in deep thought? Can he hear you? He had begun to taunt them like that, revealing that he already had knowledge of existing myths about Baal. And they, in response, you guys, began to cut themselves. And this was a practice that was common for pagan worship during these times. It was something that they did to convince their gods that they were sincere and that they had deserved an answer. And when it was Elijah's turn, he once again wanted to ensure the fairness. And that's why he had the altar and sacrifice on his side drenched with water. And how many of you guys know that you can't light something on fire that's drenched with water? That's just not how it works, right? But God. Baal was thought to be the god of water and fire, and Elijah wanted to show that the God of Israel was the one true God. And when God responded and lit Elijah's altar and his sacrifice on fire, just like Elijah knew that he would, the people made the right choice and followed God. And with the people on his side, Elijah took advantage of that moment to get rid of the false prophets. And King Ahab did not stop him. God proved his power, and then he released the rain to end the drought that had been in Israel. Now, we can all use what we've learned about God's power if we ever have to stand up for what we believe in. God will be there to remind us and help us know that true heroes stand up for God. Don't forget that we do have a memory verse for this month that comes to us from Joshua 1:9 that says, "Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." One more time, are you guys ready? Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.